What's up guys, welcome to AnimeKouhai. If you'd like to help me out, please hit the like button and subscribe to my channel.
Reinforcements sent by the former Beast Kingdom Eurazania are gradually arriving as well. The estimated number of soldiers would amount to over 100,000.
That does sound very surprising, but the Empire still has the numerical advantage.
Kigali voiced her genuine thoughts.
Indeed, the difference in numbers is huge. The Imperial Army has more than 1 million troops. Even the least competent soldiers have undergone those suspicious physical modifications, and their average strength is at least ranks C or above. Plus, they are armed with many strange pieces of equipment. Honestly, Demon Lord Rimuru will not stand a chance against the Empire.
It was astonishing to have an army of 100,000 men. Every single one of those soldiers were highly trained and had high morale to boot. Normally speaking, this was a size to be praised. However, it would quickly seem trivial when compared to the scale of the Empire's army. Centuries ago, when Kigali was still Demon Lord Kazalim, even her castle's defense mechanism, which she was quite proud of, faced defeat against the Empire's military might. This great difference in numbers couldn't help but make her think that an army of merely 100,000 soldiers was pointless. However, Yuuki had a dissenting view.
I'll keep your opinion in mind. Please proceed with the report.
Then,
Kigali calmly continued.
Next I shall report regarding his nation's technological strength.
She mentioned that Tempest had suddenly begun to sell some extremely rare, new products. There were items that could make life more convenient, as well as high-quality equipment. It was a strange assortment of items, yet all of them were very useful. Naturally, many people wanted to get an exclusive contract with the producer of these items. Yet, no matter how hard these traders tried to locate the source of these products, they could never find it. The whole ordeal remained a mystery.
The aforementioned Magitrain is also one of these items. That nation seems to be experiencing a wave of technological innovation, just like the Empire. Unfortunately, they seem to have completely prevented any leaks of their confidential information. Despite the best efforts of the Freedom Association, we were not able to find the source of these items.
It was certain that the development was being carried out somewhere in that nation, but they had no clue as to where that exactly was. This seemed to have frustrated Kigali as well. They couldn't even send their subordinates to try and find the source. If they were to draw any suspicion, it would all be over. Besides, their opponent was Demon Lord Rimuru, and even she could not face off against him. It was then that Kigali suddenly recalled something.
Now that I think about it, they are also developing some new forms of weaponry. Considering this, we should be more cautious. We must not be blinded by the number of soldiers alone.
Hearing this, Yuuki suddenly laughed.
Clever as always, you noticed. That's it. While the tanks developed by the Empire were shocking enough, Rimuru-san has also managed to develop the Magitrain. Now, scientific weapons are not exclusive to the Empire, so we cannot treat them as our ace in the hole.
The Empire was not the only one who possessed technology from another world. Rimuru also possessed the memory of an otherworlder. There was no telling what type of weapons he was developing. Any other nation would surely descend into panic when faced with the unknown strength of the Empire. Even if they had otherworlders who understood its weaponry on their side, knowing what they were up against would only make them fall further into despair. The difference in strength between the two would be very clear to them, and they would realize they have no chance of winning. But what if the Empire's enemy possessed sophisticated technology and the ability to develop the same type of things as the Empire? They could quickly come up with a solution and crush the supposed superiority the Empire enjoyed. On the other hand, if they let their current advantage get to their head, the dynamic nature of the situation might prevent them from responding quickly and leave them behind. Yuuki had the foresight to notice this, and that was why he thought that the chances of Rimuru emerging victorious were, in fact, quite high.
How boring.
Vega snapped.
We'll just beat the shit out of them, or better, kill every last one of them. That way, we'd be able to solve all our problems.
Whether it was weapons or armies, they should just eliminate any hindrance in their way, Vega declared so confidently. Yuuki was quite frustrated, having realized that nothing they said till now had gotten through to him. This guy sure has strength, but not the brains to match, or rather, he doesn't have a brain to begin with. If only he were smarter, I could have given him some more useful roles to play. Yuuki sighed internally.
When that time comes, I'll leave the matter to you, but don't underestimate the enemy.
With this vague statement, Yuuki otherwise told Vega to shut up. However, what Vega said was not entirely unreasonable. Yuuki began to ponder, thinking, after all, in this world, quality was more important than quantity. No matter how large an army you managed to organize, it would not stand a chance against Demon Lord Gi. It was easy to tell from this example that the individual strength of a combatant was something that could not be ignored. In order to achieve strategic goals, judging your enemy's strength was crucial. Essentially, information warfare was vital. And in order to achieve this, it was imperative to send someone who was actually capable, as it was remarkably common to surrender when faced with an insurmountable foe. Regardless of how strong the opponent was, the more people joined in on the attack, the greater the chances of achieving their strategic goals. Merely looking at only the combined strength of the troops was meaningless. To consider what type of troops you had and how to use them effectively was more important. From this perspective, the Tempest Federation was one tough enemy. The Demon Lord, Rimuru, was not the sole threat from this nation. Within Tempest, there were several powerful Majins. For instance, the famed four heavenly kings, Benimaru, Diablo, Xian, and Gobta. Simply having these four deployed would be equivalent to 4 tactical units, and defeating them alone would be a highly challenging task. It's not just their technological prowess, there are plenty of tough warriors too. It doesn't matter how many people we gather, they won't stand a chance against these guys. In hindsight, it makes me feel like surrendering to Demon Lord Gi really was the right thing to do. As far as Yuuki knew, he could name several people in that nation who were even stronger than Gobta. In other words, there were definitely monsters who could rival the strength of the 4 heavenly kings.
The problem is those Majins, who seem to rival saints and demon lords in strength.
Damrata muttered, agreeing with Yuuki.
Exactly. His country not only has the 4 heavenly kings, but also Majins like Geld and Gabel. It is a bit hard to understand how he was able to gather a number of Demon Lord class individuals like them.
The more Yuuki thought about it, the more dubious it became. A number of people with strength that could rival claimants were under one Demon Lord, Rimuru. And to those who knew this, it wasn't a joke but a real headache.
I guess it's fortunate that we aren't antagonizing Demon Lord Rimuru right now.
Everyone but Vega nodded silently at Yuuki's comment. Because of their agreement, it could be said that Yuuki and his comrades had come under the umbrella of Demon Lord Gi. In other words, making a move on Tempest was an affront to Gi himself. As long as they did not intend to meddle in Rimuru's affairs, one could say that they were in a temporary ceasefire with Rimuru, which was rather convenient for Yuuki, who intended to make the most of this situation. And if they ever did become hostile, it would only be after they had regained all that they lost in the West. Yuuki returned to the main subject.
So, was that everything you had to report?
He questioned Kigali.
It seems that detailed military information could not be investigated.
Kigali added.
And thus concludes all the highly accurate information I obtained. But there's one topic that is quite interesting.
And that is?
In the capital city Rimuru, they have a kind of event called emergency drills, and now they have supplemented an evacuation drill to this event.
Up until now, their disaster prevention drills had been very specific, such as taking shelter in a sturdy building or training to put out a fire. However, the purpose of this latest disaster drill was unclear, which involved getting into the town as quickly as possible through any of the gates.
Just getting into the town?
Yes, the spies were puzzled by it too, so they decided to split up and act in 2 groups.
From the inside and outside, I reckon?
That's right. As a result, they reported seeing a strange sight, like something straight out of a dream.
A strange sight?
Misha suddenly inquired.
Yes, Misha.
Kigali answered.
Unbelievable as it may seem, the whole town suddenly disappeared 10 minutes after the announcement was over, and they claimed that the only thing left remaining was one big gate.
According to the reports of the investigators who were outside, other than the gate, there were several guards left to guide the people who failed to enter the town in time. After confirming that nobody was there, the investigators decided to enter the gate. What welcomed them was a stone-built labyrinth. The investigators were able to flee outside as they panicked, which suggested that it was possible to go in and out freely.
That might be the dungeon.
Is there something you'd like to share with us, Yuuki-sama?
Yeah. I think Kigali knows about this as well. That town has a tourist attraction called the dungeon, right?
Oh yeah. The place that's crawling with monsters just waiting to be slaughtered by adventurers, was it?
That might be it. After all, there was a rumor that there is a city in that dungeon.
A city inside the dungeon?
Damrata repeated, unable to believe what he had just heard. It was hard to explain all this to someone wholly unfamiliar with it. All they could do was attempt to convince him of the truth.
Yeah, you have every right to think it's absurd, but considering this is Rimuru-san we're talking about, it may very well be possible. I mean, that labyrinth is 100 floors deep, with Veldora guarding the very bottom.
Is that true?
Of course. I heard it from Veldora himself.
Damrata was rendered speechless by Yuki's words.
Well, it makes sense if you think about it.
Kigali conceded with pity in her eyes.
There might be an important facility in that city, such as a site for developing new technology.
Ah, I see. It's possible. No, it's reasonable to think so.
Yuuki was getting more and more excited, beyond stunned, at the idea of doing something so outrageous. His vapid speculation didn't seem far off anymore. He was convinced that it was possible for Rimuru.
But if that's the case, what will happen with the war?
I don't know either. Although I've always thought that he wasn't the kind of opponent to launch a frontal attack. Protecting the city with that method is just unbelievable. I'm sure the Imperial army will also be shocked.
Yuuki was convinced that Rimuru would never bring a ruinous battle to his doorstep, because there was no way he would allow the residents of his town to get in harm's way. But what if the town is fully protected? We have to reassess all the tactics we had anticipated.
We'll just wait and see what happens in the in-town, and besides, the real battle will take place in the capital, right? I surmise that if the Imperial army ignores the gate, they will be attacked from the rear by Rimuru-san's forces.
In that case, it would be possible to launch a pincer attack together with the allied Western forces.
Their vanguard will explore and analyze the war potential of the Imperial army, and while the allied Western forces and the Imperial army are engaged in a war of attrition, the remaining Tempest forces can deal with the enemy slowly but surely.
What a scary plan to think of, as expected of a demon lord.
Understanding Yuki's words, Kigali, Damrata, and Misha looked astonished. He knew that Demon Lord Rimuru wasn't someone that could be dealt with using conventional forces alone, but he hadn't thought that it would go this far. The difficulty of even envisioning future hostilities towards him seemed to bother Yuki. Hence, he and the others were even more excited to see how the battle between the Imperial army and Demon Lord Rimuru would turn out.
So, Yuuki-sama, how should we proceed going forward?
Asked Misha, looking for the right moment. She and the others followed Yuki even after knowing he had lost to Demon Lord Gi, but even now they were not able to read what he was thinking. It was in their favor if the Empire was made to suffer by Demon Lord Rimuru and his subordinates. But if that failed to occur, they didn't want to be the ones to make it happen. With his agreement with Gi, they didn't think that Yuki would seriously back the Empire. However, they feared that now that he had become a corps commander, he would fall into his own trap.
That's it for this video, guys. Thank you for always watching my videos and supporting my channel. Shout out to the new members of AnimeKouhai supporters: Changkang, Ron De Leon, Hubert Kapjensky, Dandel Bernal. Thank you so much for helping out. Shout out to the commenters: Captain Jules, Wubbalubadubdub, Rambaru, Luminous Ekati, Vipin Gosane, and last but not least, shout out to Linglang Pagoda. I'll see you guys in the next video.